The force is absolutely strong in this beautiful sacred part of Thailand in the north. The beautiful, beautiful, beloved, dear to me, the mountain town called Pai. And this inspires the topic, today's topic, which is the 7 chakras, the 7 energy systems in the human body. And this one is pretty much laid down to us from the Hindus via their sacred texts and ancient knowledge and their rishis' observations of energy, because everything is energy, and it's very, very useful. It's a very, very useful and pretty accurate way of describing the different energy centers in the human body. And you could think of the 7 chakras, the 7 energy systems in the body, in the human body, as the 7 hells and the 7 heavens, so often talked about, it seems, in many, many, many religions and many philosophies. You know, you hear about the 7 hells and the 7 hells in Islam. You hear about it, I think, in Christianity. I'm not 100% sure. And essentially, that's your 7 hells and your 7 heavens are the way the energy expresses itself in your 7 chakras, in your 7 different energy centers in the body. So if you are living a pretty good, if you're well balanced in the root chakra, then you're living in the first level of heaven. That's the first level. If you're well balanced in all the energy systems, then you're basically living in heaven, in all the 7 heavens simultaneously. You could be living in hell and in heaven also simultaneously. If you're balanced in 2 chakras but imbalanced in 5, you're living in 5 hells and 2 heavens, which makes up an existence that is primarily characterized by hell. If you're living, say, in 5 hells and 2 heavens simultaneously, and vice versa. So let's talk about the 7 energy systems. Now, there are also different variations. There's the 12 chakra system, and then there is the nadis, the 108 energy points, and I mean, on and on it goes. But the 7 is pretty useful, pretty helpful. So the 7 chakras, let's just lay them down to you guys real quick. You have the root chakra, that's at the base of your spine. You move up, and then we're at the sex chakra, and that's really around a little bit below your navel, the belly button, right? You know, kind of in between your groin and your belly button, in that area. And the third one, moving upwards, is the solar plexus, and that's in your belly. Think of your belly, where your digestive system is located. And then moving upwards is the heart, that's in your chest, in the middle of your chest. Keep moving upwards, the throat chakra, number 5, that's pretty self-evident, self-explanatory. Throat, it's in your throat. Moving upwards, number 6 is your third eye, and that's located in between your eyebrows. And then number 7 is the crown. The crown, that's the top of your head. So to be living in the kingdom of heaven is to be wired, to be turned on. If you think of them as 7 light bulbs, if those 7 light bulbs are turned on, you're pretty much in heaven. You are in heaven. So this isn't going to be a very detailed video. I don't think. It's going to be simply going over and possibly making videos in the future separately for each chakra, because if I was to sit down here and talk about each chakra and how to balance it and how it could be imbalanced, I mean, this video will go on for a couple of hours. So perhaps I will actually do that in another video. Maybe I'll actually sit down and sort of do a little preparation and be ready to sit here for 1 hour plus, talk about the chakras. So I'll be brief. The root chakra is the one that's at the base of your spine. That's the one that is associated with security. So it gets imbalanced if you're not secure, if you're worried about money. And by the way, if you are always worried about money, there's a good chance you have lower back issues. So that's exactly why, because that's where the chakra is located. And if you're always feeling insecure, if you live in a war-torn country or something like that, then yeah, that part of you is going to be compromised. That energy system, that energy center is going to be compromised. It may cause some issues, some pain. And if you feel pretty secure and you don't really have to think about money because you know it's always provided, then you're taken care of there. Then that energy system is balanced. And again, it's not just money, it's security. Anything related to security. Okay? So I would say a good, I mean, I'm just throwing numbers out of my ass, or let's say out of my spine. And I would say maybe 70% of humanity is still in there, imbalanced, trying to work out the root chakra. You know, I mean, think of all the hungry and thirsty and sick and diseased people in the world. And then people living in insecure places, war-torn places, or just places where there's a lot of violence. That may add up to, you know, 60, at least 50% of the human population now, at least. And so if that's not taken care of, you're pretty much going to be imbalanced everywhere else. I mean, you may display some, well, you know, there are people who live in war-torn countries who actually operate at very high levels. So it would take maybe a more advanced soul to be able to do that. However, if you're always living in that survival, fight or flight, chances are you're not going to be moving up very much. And chances are there are imbalances everywhere else in your chakras. But of course, that isn't always true. I'm just laying out the probability here. So I would say a good 50 to 70% of humanity is still very much imbalanced in their basic root chakra. Moving upwards, we go to the sex chakra. And that's the one that's associated with pleasure, experiencing pleasure in the world, and emotions, emotional well-being. So, for example, let's give you an example here. Say a woman can't experience an orgasm. That's probably someone who has been hurt, traumatized at one point or another, maybe got abused sexually or something, and then she closed off due to the trauma, and now she can't experience pleasure, she can't experience orgasm, she cannot experience joy, she can't experience emotions, you know, or she can, but she suppresses them. You know, everybody experiences emotions, but if you're traumatized, as a defense mechanism, you sort of play down your emotions, and you just kind of put them somewhere, you suppress them. You're not able to express your emotions. You're not able to experience pleasure and joy. So yeah, and so imbalances would be imbalances could go both ways. It could be I can't experience it, or I can't get enough of it. Is I'm experiencing too much pleasure, too much emotions, too much of it. So that's why I said the details of it will be for a different video, because really, again, the imbalances can go both ways, right? So somebody who's sexually promiscuous, and it's just that's their thing. They live to have sex, and that they're always on the hunt, never enough. That's also an imbalance there in that chakra, in that energy system. So yeah, so there's the second one. Moving up to the third one is your solar plexus. That's your stomach area. That's your place in the world. That's your place in the world. That's your power chakra. That's your confidence, your power, your place in the world. In many ways, your ego. In many ways, this is the power place, the power chakra. And so, again, somebody who's imbalanced there would be like pretty much all our politicians. 99.9% of our politicians, they are on a power trip, always, you know, power tripping and whatnot, and they're always you know, wanting to exert their power in the world, and they want to exploit others. So somebody who feels low self-esteem and worthlessness, and they don't feel like they have anything to contribute to the world, that's an imbalance in the other way. So that's not enough. And so those three chakras, they're sort of considered the lower chakras. and they're very much worldly chakras. They're associated with this world, with this dimension, with this physical plane of existence, right? Survival is the root, reproduction is the sex, and then power is the solar. So I would probably even go ahead and say that 95% of humanity is not making their way out of the first three chakras, the first three domains of energy expression. I would say that's almost a fact, actually, that currently 95% of humanity is somehow still trying to balance out the energies in the first three. Another imbalance that is clearly prevalent in the solar plexus is this is where your digestion occurs. And if you've got some eating problems, eating disorders, and binges and food addictions, which is like all of us humans, pretty much, then you're going to cause some imbalance in the solar plexus as well. And so you're gonna feel sick and weak. That's where most of the diseases occur. The root of diseases occurs in the gut. So yeah, so there is another one. And I would say humanity, 95% of humanity is very much in that place, still stuck in those three, trying to figure shit out. And hence, you rarely run into, beings who are operating primarily in the higher chakras, simply because most humanity, the vibration here, because we're living in the Kali Yuga, the age of darkness, so the consciousness is low relative to the other ages, and therefore the energy goes down from up down and stays there, and it's sort of trying to figure itself out and sort itself out and balance itself out, because you're not really gonna move up there unless you've sorted your shit out down there. And this is why often, you see all the great ones, all the sages, they'll go to the desert or to the mountains or something, and they'll fast. So that's one way of sorting out their root chakra and their solar plexus. They're doing it because they understand that there's a lot of imbalances there. Let me balance this. Let me purify this body. Let me purify those first three chakras and balance them out, so that the energy can move upwards to the heart, to the throat, to the third eye. So very rarely will individuals actually go upwards to the heart and the throat and the third eye and the crown, unless they've really balanced themselves out in the lower chakras. Very, very rarely. And that's why you can't escape this world, my friends. You have to really be here in this world and figure your shit out and sort your shit out. When people say find your purpose or find your passion and be creative, etc., well, that's your solar plexus, because if you know what your place in the world is, you've got a balanced solar plexus, and of course you could become power obsessed. Many things can happen, but it's part of it. You really have to figure your shit out in this world. You really have to be here. You can't escape your problems. You can't escape your problems. You've got to be here and deal with them. And so by dealing with them, by balancing those first three, then we can go ahead and move upwards, because the Shakti, the energy moves upwards, just like heat loves to move upwards. So and then you've got the heart. The heart is the heart. It's in your chest, and that one connects the lower chakras, the chakras of this world, to the higher chakras, the chakras of the, let's say, the cosmic chakras, the chakras that connect you to the entire cosmos. Starting with the heart is number 4. That's the connector. You can say the heart is the one bridging this world with other worlds, with the cosmos. And that's why it's so heavily emphasized, because it represents balance. Balance, Now, that can get also, the heart could get easily quite imbalanced. I've got some friends who are very, compassionate and loving and empathic. And it really drains them, because there's that compassion isn't balanced by the wisdom of the third eye. So then it really drains them. If you're overly compassionate and overly empathic, and you're absorbing all the energies, and you're not sort of mixing them with the wisdom of the divine, like somebody who, for example, is so compassionate that every time somebody dies or say they see something die, they'll really like just go and cry and feel really sad and stuff, right? uh, if that isn't balanced by the wisdom of death is a natural part, and in fact like death is a new beginning, etc., if the compassion isn't balanced by the wisdom of the third eye, you're gonna have an imbalance there. So you could be, imbalanced in that, or you just you have no empathy at all, no love, no compassion at all, zero. So again, to make your way up to the heart, you really have to, so I know individuals who move up there and beyond without having their first three chakras fully balanced. So it is absolutely possible, to do that. But if you really want to optimize and really move upwards with a lot of power and a lot of vigor, then it's always very crucial to, really balance the first three. So moving upwards to the throat, that's when you speak your truth. That's when you authentically express your truth. And so, again, prophets, speakers, people who came to, teach, those are people that are operating in the throat chakra. They, so think of, Buddha, think of Jesus, think of, again, all the sages, Lao Tzu, they were also operating in the throat, and their throat was balanced and open, and they were expressing their truth. So if you feel like you're choking, you're anxious, you can't speak up, that's an imbalance right there. And again, usually a lot of these imbalances form in our childhood and due to societal conditioning. So if you, as a child, were expressive, but your parents always told you to shut up or something, or this and that, and then, you just learn how to shut up, and now you can't speak up. So the other imbalance is that you speak too much, you speak too much. So moving up to the third eye, that's in between your eyebrows, that in many ways is the gateway to the cosmos. Once the third eye is fully open, you could travel anywhere, you could be anywhere, you could activate all your psychic abilities and probably do things like walking on water like Jesus did, turning water into wine, telekinesis, and all kinds of miracles that you hear of are the works of the third eye. And that's where the wisdom is also. I mean, think about it. When you think also, you feel this tension in between your brows, right? Because you're thinking. That's the mind. That's the first law of the hermetic principles is all is mind, and that's very much in your third eye. And so that's why, even DMT is secreted there, in the pineal gland, all kinds of psychedelic type molecules and chemicals. That's the center, really. That's where wisdom is. That's the driver of the vehicle, which is your body. So again, an imbalance could occur there. If your third eye is overstimulated, you probably can't sleep, you probably can't rest, you can't chill, you're always like wired, too wired. If it's imbalanced, then again, you're probably primarily stuck in the materialistic paradigm. So you're probably one of those that's like shrugs off and makes fun of anything that sounds supernatural or woo-woo, because your third eye is pretty much totally closed at that point. And then the crown is that's the ecstasy. That's the ecstasy of being, really. The ecstasy of being. The ecstasy. That's probably the best word to describe it, really. If you've ever danced and you felt ecstatic, you pretty much momentarily, temporarily activated that part of you, that crown chakra, and you're feeling this ecstasy, this bliss. It's wordless. That's there's no words to it. Really, it's just pure ecstasy. If you've ever had sex and it was really, really, and it was sort of fueled by love, you probably experienced that also. Ecstasy, ecstasy, joy, bliss. It's wordless. There's no words really to describe it. You are finding yourself in a sort of a speechless state in that when you're experiencing yourself in the crown chakra. And same thing, can be imbalanced, can be balanced also. Some of the sages who end up getting there and sort of activating it regularly, they get so addicted to it and they just forget themselves in the cave. And that could be an imbalance. And the other one is you never experience it. Some people never really experience true ecstasy. Their crown chakra pretty much goes untouched from birth to grave. I'd say a good deal of humans, they never really experience that. Or maybe they experience it once or twice. So that's the mystical experience, essentially. That's the mystical experience. And you could definitely experience that on psychedelics. I certainly have many times. And there are many ways to experience it. Ecstatic dancing, they call it ecstatic dancing for a reason. Shamanic dancing, holotropic breathing, Wim Hof breathing. If you go deep into it, you'll experience that ecstasy. And again, the main character of it is just feeling bliss, feeling joy, feeling happiness. It has absolutely no reason. It just is. And there's just really there's absence of thinking, absence of language, pure ecstasy, pure bliss. And like I said, it's much easier to go into the higher chakras if your first three are balanced, although you could go upwards without having the first three totally balanced, but much more difficult. You're really fighting a battle. And in the long run, it's just much better to balance the first three, which means you can't escape this world. Which means, you have to be here. You chose to be here. You chose this experience. So don't run away. Face your problems head on. And the energy will spontaneously on its own rise upwards. You'll begin to experience more love, more joy, more wisdom. Speak your truth more. Because you'll feel better. You'll be more grounded in this reality, which means you can transcend it now. So, I'm just literally touching base here, and it's like a 22-minute video. So I will definitely be back for some much more detailed. I might just divide it up into different videos and just go each chakra on its own. That will probably be better. So thank you to all the Patreons for your support. And I would love to do this full time at some point. So if you would like to contribute and join the Patreon family, which currently stands at an impressive 29 people. Thank you so much, lovely people. You could do so. The link is down below in the description. And don't forget to follow this asshole on Instagram, okay? Go on Instagram, just go on Saeed Mobayed, that's it. Just go look up Saeed Mobayed, you'll find me. I post cool pictures and videos related to where I live there, so it's a bit different, more personal. And you could talk to me directly, just message. So, that's kind of why I brought the Instagram back. And so, other than that, you could also do one-time donations via PayPal. I appreciate anything my way. And that's about it. Until next time, may the force be with you.